our Miami preview.
Yeah.
What's the temperature with Mario right now? Like, what is, because I look at it like this: you're in year 4 at the U. In today's era of the transfer portal, I don't want to hear about slow rebuilds at big time programs. I don't want to hear it, like what does he need to do this year to say, hey, look, we're in good hands? We may not win it this year, because I think we would both agree that Miami's not a championship contender this year, barring some things maybe happening that, wow, that's better than we thought, or that's going a little, at least that's the way I look at it. But what does he need to do to say, hey, we're going in the right direction? Like, what is that for him this year? Or is it like, dude, he's just not it? Like, what is that for Miami this year?
Honestly, like, we've been on an upward ascension, like 5 wins, 7 wins, 10. Like, if you're going to be that, Panther G just said, hey, like, Mario just won 10 games. It needs to be that or better. You know what I mean? Like, it just needs to.
So just no regression.
We cannot have regression. Like, I know that most books have the over under at 9.5. Got to be over.
Right.
And
that's my contention.
And you got to make
Miami's more than 9 over against the schedule they play. With all that they lost last year, then and this is kind of where me and my guy Trevor go back and forth. He thinks he had Miami at 8-4. I think I had him at 9-3 or 10-2. But I think that's the key is if you don't regress with all you lost, then I do think that's actually a step in the right direction.
Yes, no, absolutely. But it needs to be, honestly, 9-3. It would have to be.
That's got to be the floor for you.
It has to be the floor, and it has to be some kind of crazy, close losses. But, like, I really am not accepting of 2 ACC losses, but then I'm very much not accepting losing to y'all and them people from Alachua County. So then is it like, do I take that and then have 1 loss and make it to Sharp? But, like, even come hell or high water or whatever the formation is, I would say that 9-3 has to be the floor, and it has to be that with very, like, the narrative surrounding, if it's 9-3, the circumstances and narratives of the 3 are uber important.
Yeah.
But like 10-2 being the like where the water finds its level, like that's the thing. And we've been hearing this from Mario. Cool. We needed to get the guys in. Ruben Bain's a junior this year. Or Francis Mauinoa, number 61 at right tackle. This is his last year because it's going to be a top 10 NFL draft pick. Like, you had to get all these guys in. You've done that. We took the stupid losses. You didn't take a freaking knee against Georgia Tech, and everybody. My aunt, who doesn't watch sports, called me that Sunday and said, hey, didn't you go to Miami? Isn't that your team? What happened with that was the level of failure that was. That it hit, like, ABC Morning News or whatever, Good Morning America. Good Morning America had that. That's the kind of failure. But to me, you have to hit that 10-2 is where water finds its level. You win 1 or both of these games, you find a way, and you continue to develop the guys at the positions where you really haven't, which to me are wide receiver and in the secondary, because we've had this elite level recruiting. And so you're talking about, we got all the guys, well, not all, but a lot of the guys that we wanted, they're not playing like it. They are on the defensive line. They are on the offensive line. They are intermittently linebacker, but at the high skill, positions, you haven't had that. But we need to see that. So all of that putting together, I think that's where it is. But in general, there's no temperature on Mario's seat. We paid way too much to get here. He's buddy with everybody in senior leadership, that bought him up off of his contract in Oregon. So he's going to be here. Now you got to show him prove with wins on the field, my guy.
So at the end of the day, sorry, Mark, Miami goes 9-3. They lose a 4-quarter game against Notre Dame. Okay. Let's say they lose on the road against SMU, who's as good as they were last year, just for argument's sake. And then one of Tech or Pitt on the road at the end of the year, but you beat Florida, you beat Florida State. Do you at least say, okay, we're seeing progress? Because I think if that happens, you're seeing some young guys, your running backs, you're seeing some guys step up. Because I just look at it, I think they actually get, with the exception of Clemson, I think they get several of the best teams in the ACC this year. including a couple. And if you look at what Pitt was before Eli Holstein goes down, like, and if you want to talk about like best linebacker rooms in the country,
yeah.
And cats at Pitt can play now. Like, I just feel like I see a scenario where, as long as they're competitive losses, I feel like, okay, I've learned something positively about Mario Cristobal. I even said about James Frank, and Mark knows I crushed James Frank, still do. But I was like, the way they lost to Notre Dame and the way they lost to Oregon, kind of said, okay, maybe that he's starting to figure it out a little bit, where his teams are a little bit more competitive in some of those moments.
The only thing that would be the big negative from your 9-3 scenario is that means we're 9-2 or 8-1, or like we're 8-2 or 9-2, and then lose in November on the road to Virginia Tech
a little bit.
You know what I mean?
Year,
right? Yeah. So even if we get there, right, we're in November where championships are won at either 8-2 or 9-2 in the penultimate or ultimate weeks of the season, and you still find a way to like that.
So
then
you
becomes the thorn in the side.
To like lose to a Louisville than SMU, but then dominate.
No, I hate Louisville. No, not Louisville.
Well, I mean, what are your options? You've got Florida, Florida State, Louisville, Stanford. I don't know what your non-late season options are for in my scenario of not of being 9-3.
Right. None of the above at 10-2. Like that's but like no, but seriously, that's why I'm pointing at 10-2 as being where things need to go. Because if you continue to lose late in the season, now there's other kinds of things that come into the scenario of, okay, are you able to sustain this greatness? Are you able to figure out how to get your system to work across the entirety of the season? Like, I hear you and completely like
fair. I think 10-2 with all you lost last year and a first-year defensive coordinator. Yeah. I think that's a say, hey, look, Miami's they're at least selling where there's a new floor in Miami.
Yes. 9-3 could also
Freeman did. There's a new floor at Notre Dame of 10 wins. Where if you can't go below that. I think that was always a problem. Miami's you'd have one good year and then the next year you go 5-7, and Notre Dame kind of went through some of that. Hey, you're in the title game and the next year you lose to South Florida.
Right.
Or actually wasn't South Florida, it was Michigan, early in the season, and you lose to Pitt and teams like that. So I'm with you on that. So I think 10-2 with all you lost and a new coordinator, and just as an outsider, would make me say, okay, I think Mario's settled in well there.
Yeah, I think.
And now it's about finding a quarterback of the future. That which I think they think they have.
We think
the kid coming in, but we'll see.
But but also just to wrap it up, because I know Mark is trying to flag us down for 20 minutes here, but a great conversation with you.
Mark, come on, man. Mark, you don't bring me onto your show and think it's not going to go a long time.
Hello, ditto. But I think that you could even if it were to be 9-3, I think that there are a lot of positives to be found there. I think that there's a lot of growth and development. And okay, maybe the floor needs to get to 9-3 before it fully gets to 10 wins or whatever. I just obviously with losing another game, there's even more negative. I mean, it's just another negative result, and especially if it were to come later in the year. There's other narratives and things about the program, its operations, and things like that would come into question.
That's how 2017 was too. It's like that's why Miami fans love talking about Notre Dame game, because they don't talk about anything that happened after that. I mean, and that's kind of what Brian Kelly went through some of that stuff. Like 2017, Notre Dame was rolling coming into that Miami game, and then they lose 2 out of 3. And now it's like, I don't even want to talk about the last 3 games. I don't know what you're talking about. They didn't play any games after beating Wake Forest. What are you talking about? I get it.
Yeah.
There's a pretty conceivable scenario in which Miami loses 4 games, and the 4th is an ACC championship game because they lost 2 non-conference games to Florida and Notre Dame, but they go 7-1 in the ACC, but they've got to face a top 5 Clemson team, and Miami fans aren't going to love 9-4, but they just went to the ACC championship game.
You're putting this Florida loss into the universe, and I don't like that, even as a hypothetical. I know what you're talking about, Mark. I'm a guy
of
like
scenarios. That would be perceived as a big step back. Losing at home to Florida after what you did to them at their place, I think, and then especially if you also lose Notre Dame like that, that's when I think things start to temperature a little bit.
And then you have, and we're one of 3 things that have it. We, after the Florida game, bye. So you got 2 weeks in 3 where there's nothing to do but hop on here Tuesday night at 7 and talk about the way that things are going wrong.
Don't ask me to come on that show.
Okay, I'm gonna pull that one back out of the universe, and I'm gonna interject what I originally was going to interject. That just flew out at the last second. What the hand gesture was for about 10 minutes is like a caller asked me a couple hours ago about Luke Fickell. What's he need? What would be your evaluation on Luke Fickell going forward this year? So I'll say it this way because you guys kind of danced around it. For me, there's a lot of teams in college football from year to year that finish with an 8-4, 9-3 record, and they play a couple games that are significantly at a higher level of opponent than everything else. And I think Miami usually falls into that, where they've got about 3 games where they play really strong competition, and then there's a drop. And it's the Virginia Techs and the Georgia Techs and the Virginias and that they should take care of. So it's more about, yes, the first criteria is always, what's your record? Tell me your record. Don't tell me anything else. Let's start with a record. Absolutely. But for me, it's then let's evaluate how competitive is this. One of those 9-3 teams that's a bit of smoke and mirrors. They weren't really that good against the good teams, and they beat everybody they were supposed to, but there's still this wide gap between them and the elites. Or is it a 9-3 where, oh man, they took Clemson to the wire in the ACC championship game. They took Notre Dame, who then went to the semifinals of the playoffs, to the wire, and they're a really good 9-3 team.
That's how I was looking at it, Mark, is like if you lose to Notre Dame in a close game, you lose to SMU in a close game, and you lose to anyone other than Florida State in a close game, that means you would still have, so let's say it is Pitt in my scenario, that means you still beat Florida, you still beat Florida State, you still beat Louisville, and you still beat the other of Virginia Tech and Pitt. Like with all you lost, I just feel like that would say like, okay, they're at least treading. That's what I say that new floor that you've got to set the new floor before you can reach your ceiling. And that's why I think that the 2013 season was so important for Notre Dame to finish the way they did, because it set a new floor to where they were on the verge of, I mean, you lost to Clemson and Louisville, and it's like, okay, where's this thing going to go from here? And then of course that changes. Yeah, and I mean,
9-3. I mean, I have been tough. I am tough, but it is not. The sky is not falling at 9-3.
Yeah.
But at the level that we aspire to be,
sure.
When you're between 9-3 and 10-2, we're firmly in hair splitting territory. I mean, I know I don't have any myself, but we're firmly in hair splitting territory now, and those kind of things, those small details do matter and make the difference. So, I mean, it could come to pass with that, scenario and things. And I do think that 9-3 or 10-2, somewhere in the, I mean, as long as it's on immediately either side of the over-under number, like if our over-under is 9.5, which it is, I don't need to see no 7 or 6 this year. You know what I mean? Like,
isn't that what Schnellenberger did though? I mean, he set a new floor at Miami. It didn't happen overnight, but it's like, okay, 9-3, 9-2, and then you had the one small dip. And then, I mean, I think that's what you got to do at a place like this that's been down for as long as it has been. That's what Brian Kelly did at Notre Dame to a degree also. I got to give him credit for that. Is the floor was like when they went 9-4, you were kind of like, what the heck happened? And I think that's kind of where Miami is. And